What if the movie you thought you understood completely fell apart in a single moment? What if everything you believed about the story, the characters, the very reality of what you were watching, was shattered in the span of a few seconds? That is the power of a truly great plot twist. And today, we are counting down and breaking down the most shocking plot twists in movie history, the ones that rewrote the rules, broke audiences, and changed cinema forever. Let us start by understanding why plot twists matter so much to us as viewers. Human beings are wired for narrative. We build mental models of stories as we experience them. We track characters, predict outcomes, and invest emotionally in what we think is happening. A great plot twist does not just surprise you, it exploits that entire mental architecture you have been building and collapses it all at once. The best twists are not random. They are carefully engineered moments where the filmmaker has been hiding the truth in plain sight the entire time, daring you to figure it out before you do. The craft behind a great twist involves layers of misdirection, careful dialogue writing, and performance choices that only reveal their true meaning on a second viewing. Hitchcock understood this better than anyone. He called it the difference between surprise and suspense. Surprise is cheap. It lasts a second. But suspense, the feeling that something enormous is just beneath the surface, that is what great storytelling actually delivers. And when suspense finally breaks into revelation, the emotional impact is almost impossible to replicate through any other cinematic tool. Now let us get into the films themselves, starting with a movie that absolutely defined the modern twist ending, The Sixth Sense, released in 1999, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Bruce Willis plays Dr. Malcolm Crowe, a child psychologist working with a boy named Cole who claims to see dead people. Throughout the film, the audience watches Malcolm struggle to connect with his wife, help his patient, and process what seems like a personal failure. Then, in the final minutes, the film reveals something extraordinary. Malcolm himself has been dead the entire time. He was shot in the opening scene. Everything we watched, every conversation, every interaction, was recontextualized in an instant. The movie earned over $672 million worldwide on a $40 million budget. Critics and audiences were stunned. And here is what makes it genuinely brilliant. On rewatch, every single clue is there. Malcolm never actually interacts with anyone other than Cole. Doors are never opened for him. His wife never truly speaks to him. The twist is not a cheat. It is a reward for paying attention. Moving on to Fight Club, also from 1999, clearly an extraordinary year for cinematic deception. David Fincher's adaptation of Chuck Palahniuk's novel follows an unnamed narrator, played by Edward Norton, who befriends the charismatic and anarchic Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt. They build an underground fighting network that evolves into something far darker. Then comes the revelation: Tyler Durden is not real. He is a dissociative identity the narrator has created. The narrator and Tyler are the same person. Every scene featuring both characters together is actually one man talking to himself, acting out both roles. The film had already planted this reveal through subtle visual cues, single-frame flashes of Tyler appearing before he was supposedly introduced, but audiences missed them entirely on first viewing. Fight Club initially underperformed at the box office but became one of the most analyzed and discussed films in cinema history, precisely because of how deeply layered that twist actually is. Let us talk about Psycho, released in 1960, because no conversation about shocking twists is complete without acknowledging what Alfred Hitchcock did to the entire concept of audience expectation. Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, is set up as the clear protagonist of the film. She has a full backstory. She steals money. She goes on the run. And then, barely 40 minutes into the movie, she is murdered in a shower. Hitchcock killed his lead character while the film still had more than an hour left to run. This was unprecedented. Audiences genuinely did not know what to do. Movie theaters at the time reportedly had to install policies preventing latecomers from entering after the film started because Hitchcock demanded no one miss the setup. The shower scene is one of the most studied sequences in film history. But the deeper twist comes later when we discover Norman Bates has been living as his deceased mother, literally embodying her personality, wearing her clothes, and speaking in her voice. Psycho essentially invented the psychological thriller genre and set a template that hundreds of films have attempted to replicate ever since. Now we need to talk about The Usual Suspects from 1995. Director Bryan Singer and writer Christopher McQuarrie crafted one of the most celebrated mystery thrillers ever made. The film follows a group of criminals who are manipulated into a heist by a mysterious crime lord known as Kaiser Soze. The story is told in retrospect by Roger Verbal Kint, played by Kevin Spacey, a small, limping, seemingly unremarkable con artist being questioned by police. The entire film builds toward the revelation of Kaiser Soze's identity. And in the final moments, as Detective Dave Cugin watches Verbal walk out of the police station, he glances down at the bulletin board in his office and begins to realize something terrifying. Every name, every detail, every story element Verbal provided was lifted directly from objects in that interrogation room. Kaiser Soze is Verbal Kint. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he did not exist. The script won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, and the final scene remains one of the most replayed twist reveals in film history. Oldboy, the 2003 South Korean masterpiece directed by Park Chan-wook, deserves enormous recognition for delivering perhaps the most psychologically devastating twist in international cinema. Oh Dae-soo is imprisoned without explanation for 15 years, then suddenly released and given clues to find out why. The film builds into a complex revenge narrative. But the conclusion reveals something almost too cruel to process. The man he has been pursuing, the architect of his imprisonment, arranged for Oh Dae-soo to fall in love with a young woman who is, in fact, his own daughter. The villain did not want revenge through death or violence. He wanted to destroy his enemy's soul completely, using the man's own capacity for love against him. Oldboy won the Grand Prix at Cannes and redefined what international audiences expected from psychological thriller storytelling. We should also discuss Memento from 2000, Christopher Nolan's extraordinary structural achievement. Leonard Shelby has anterograde amnesia. He cannot form new memories. He is searching for his wife's killer using Polaroids and tattoos on his own body to track information. The film is told in reverse chronological order, and as the structure unfolds backward, the audience slowly realizes that Leonard has been manipulated, that he may have already found his wife's killer and killed him, and that he is essentially being used by others because his condition makes him infinitely controllable. The twist is not a single moment, it is an accumulating horror that builds as the film runs in reverse. Nolan would go on to become one of the most successful directors in Hollywood history, and Memento remains the most formally inventive entry in his catalog. What these films share is something deeper than clever screenwriting. They each invite the audience to participate actively in the story and then reveal that the audience has been an unreliable interpreter of events all along. This mirrors something genuinely true about human experience. We construct narratives from incomplete information. We fill gaps with assumptions. We trust the wrong narrators and miss the visible evidence. The best plot twists in movie history are not just entertainment. They are meditations on how we understand reality itself. The economics of a great plot twist are also worth examining. The Sixth Sense is one of the highest-grossing films of 1999 adjusted for modern dollars. The Usual Suspects cost $6 million to produce and earned over $23 million in its initial theatrical run before becoming an endless home video and streaming staple.